Next, let's talk about rebuttal. So important. Here's what I want you to try, okay? Different teams like different things. Let me just... A rebuttal card, an enlarged palm card, okay? Some teams, or some people, it depends on you, completely up to you. I've seen plenty of good debaters that will just write on the same cards. I've seen plenty of good debaters that go, you know what, my speech is going to be on white card and I'm going to buy some yellow cards and they'll be my rebuttal cards, so I don't get confused between what's rebuttal and what's my speech. Good idea, but only if your brain works that way. So if you think that'll help you, then put them on a different coloured card. Because at the table, when you're collecting up your speech, you'll go, okay, the yellow one's a rebuttal, the white is my speech, I'll make sure the rebuttal goes on top, so they're all the yellow ones, or otherwise mark them. So if you're going to have a rebuttal card, maybe an R in the top left or right hand corner if they're all the same colour. What you don't want to get to is stand up, got some rebuttal, oh, that's the beginning of my speech, where are my other rebuttal cards? Now I'm standing there looking like a fool, I've got to sort it out. Also, the other thing is, another team might only speak for about a minute or a minute and a half, and you haven't got they haven't said a lot, so you haven't got a lot of rebuttal. That can be a problem that you need to deal with. If that ever happens, let me deal with that quickly. Let's say they have no rebuttal at all, or let's say they only have 1 or 2 points, and you know you've got to speak for 4.5 minutes, or something, or at least 4 minutes. But you're not going to do it because you're the first affirmative speaker and you've allocated about 2 or 3 minutes to rebuttal and you've got like a 2-3 minute speech. Now you know that you're only going to speak for 3 minutes because you've got nothing to say. So you need to actually say that. You need to get up and say, okay, the first affirmative speaker or whoever they are really didn't have a lot to say. They didn't rebut any of our points, or they only rebutted these 1 or 2 points. But here's what they were anyway. So you've told the adjudicator, I listened, there's not a lot. They already know there's not a lot. You know why? Because they look at their own adjudication book and there's nothing there. So they know, they agreed with you. But you've got to point that out. Because what you don't want to do is only speak for 3 minutes and sit down and look at your teammate and go, well, he or she didn't say very much, so therefore I didn't have much, don't blame me, I didn't get to 3 minutes, that kind of thing. You've got to actually put that out there and say it. Remember, unless you say it, an adjudicator can't do anything about it. They might understand, they might know, but you honestly, not treat them like a child, but you need to treat them like they don't know anything about the topic at all. That's not to explain every single word, but that's to go, I've got to explain stuff. Otherwise they can't count it. So, rebuttal cards. Have an R or a different colour. Okay? Now also, what you might like to try, just initially. They said, what's the point? What's the point that you want to say? So, in order to build these, let's say the other teams stand up and in their allocation, their first speaker, because we're first speaker of the negative, let's say their affirmative team says, their first speaker says, I've got 3 main points today. Okay, straight away guys, the person who's first speaker is listening out for the first point. The person who's second speaker is listening out for the second point. Third speaker is listening out for the third point. Team advisor is listening out for the fourth point if there is one. If they have 5 main points, it rotates back around to the first speaker, but they probably won't. They'll have somewhere between 2, 3 or 4. Now, what if they start talking about something and the first speaker has no idea what they're talking about? You need to flag that straight away. So if everybody's still listening, but it's one person's responsibility to write some rebuttal for that person's point. So if the first speaker has no idea what that other person is talking about, you look at your second speaker and go, I've got nothing. Second speaker might go, I've got something for that. Then you listen for the second point. They write the first point rebuttal. All right? You don't just leave it because you have no idea. You keep working down the line. And it'll happen quick. That's why you've got to listen out for it. If you're up against a team that's not very well prepared, they'll just do this and then move on. So you've got that fast to write. They didn't explain it. They didn't give an example of it. They just said it. So you've got to move a lot quicker because it might just go 3 sentences. Bang, bang, bang. They might finish it in a minute and a half. And then you've got to get up and present your 4-minute speech. Good luck. All right, but not a lot of rebuttal, so that you might have a chance to just move that time around a bit. Anyway, so with your rebuttal, what did they say? So they said this. They said, we need to all keep together because mainstream schools are the way to go with everybody helping each other. And maybe they gave an example. Let's say they were really good and they gave an example of that. Okay, so what did they say? we need to stay together in mainstream schools because we're all together in what we're doing with education. So, but now this can be as long or short. If you have to write out the whole sentence, that's okay. In that example, you might just need to write down mainstream schools. So that's what they talked about. But we say, what's your answer to that? They think this is the answer, but what are you going to say about that? Now, if you really want to kick your rebuttal up and make it incredibly good, and you've got time, you put an example in of what you are talking about. They said this. We think this is a better idea. Here's why we think this is a better idea. You do this in your first couple of debates, you probably won't lose because there won't be a lot of teams that do this. Those first about 2 rounds of debates usually come down to which team rebuts the best. Because you know what? Everybody's kind of ready to present their own argument. What they're not ready to do is this. Plenty of debating coaches spend their time doing this. They don't teach this too much at the beginning. And this is where teams fall down or win. I can probably tell you out of the 11 years plus that I've been doing this, the first couple of rounds, how many times an adjudicator stood up and said, I've given it to the team that had more rebuts. You know, I can almost bet come Monday, that sentence is going to come out. Particularly if you're doing this. All right? So, if anything, try and build this as best as possible. What did they say? What do you think? Give an example of why you think that. And you want to be ultra smart? Link it back to your team line. But you don't have to, and you haven't got a lot of time because remember you're writing all the time when you're up there. Okay? Questions about anything so far? No? Yes? Go.
For the peer method, do you do it when you introduce the point or just when you actually are talking about that?
When you're talking about the point. So you're doing this in your point. So my first point is, whatever your point is, I'm going to explain what that is. So what I mean by that is, and you can use those words. You know, at the beginning, guys, I want to encourage you. This is called scaffolding. And adjudicators kind of like it and don't like it at the same time. But you know what? In the first couple of rounds, they love it because it shows that you're preparing. So, you know, they don't mind because what they do is they go, okay, she's making a point. I'm going to explain that now. Okay, she's going to explain her point. This is an example of it. Oh, great, here comes an example. And now this links to our team's case or our model or our team line this way. Great, an adjudicator loves it because he or she can go, all right, I see this. You know, and the same thing for rebuttal. They said this. Okay, oh great, they're talking about rebuttal. Now, with your rebuttal cards, you might have like 4 or 5 rebuttals. Say that at the beginning. You know, so you're first speaker of the negative team. You basically, you know, stand up and say, we found 5 faults in the negative team's case, or we have 5 things that we'd like to talk about that the negative team said. You know what you're not going to say? Something stupid like the negative team's, you know, case is like a donut, nice on the outside, but there's a massive hole in the middle. No one wants to hear that. That's ridiculous. You know, people like to do that for a laugh or something, but it just doesn't make you sound smart. And that's the problem. So don't use cliche stuff like that because it looks like you're filling up time as well, and you don't want to do that. You want to actually show you mean business. You got 5 things that you want to talk about that they didn't quite do, or you know, you want to discuss about their case, and you want to actually hit it like this. So use these things. They said this. We say, or we think. So an example of that is, and you know what? You got 5 points, do this 5 times. Does it sound boring? Initially, yes. Will an adjudicator get it? Absolutely, and that's what you want. Oh, on to my next rebuttal. They said, what do you want to talk about? This is an example of why this is wrong. As you get better and more comfortable, this will flow. These words will change to something else, but the pattern will repeat. But I think for you guys initially at the beginning, follow the script, and therefore you'll include all the information. That's what we want from the early debates. I want to see the information. If the words are all the same, I don't so much mind. But the info's got to be there. So I think what we'll do now is actually just work together and we'll build some points.